We are in a 2013 Chevy Cruze. Complaint is it won't go over like 30 miles per hour. So let's take it out for a test drive. Okay, so initially I could feel it has no power. There is a noise coming from the engine. I don't know if you could hear that. It's like a whining noise. Let's look at the codes here. We have a map sensor performance code, system lean, engine under boost, evap, and intake airflow system performance. Alright, so let's look at some data. Alright, so right now it's just chugging along like it just wants to turn off. It's having a hard time running. Look at our short-term fuel trims. I want to say that's completely maxed out. So let's see. Here's put neutral or park. Alright, so let's see if that dropped. Let's go and graph. Okay, let's let off the pedal. And right back up there. Hold on. Let's see. Let's see what it does. Okay, it's starting to get worse and worse, and you can see the fuel trims are climbing. We have a vacuum leak. This thing is practically on a flat. We gotta put some air in this tire. We have a coolant leak. Look at that mess down there. Most likely it's gonna be the water pump. Look at that mess. It just sprayed everywhere, all over the hood. I did a quick smoke test. Didn't find anything initially, so I just kind of moved on and started looking at other things. One thing I already found bad is the purge valve is stuck open. So that right there is most likely what she has that evap code for. So that's bad. Alright, so I got my little El Cheapo smoke machine going, and it's not the best thing, but there's actually smoke coming out of here. It's really hard to see, but there is smoke coming out. There's a diaphragm inside of here, and sometimes these get messed up to the point where they leak, and obviously it could be a vacuum leak. And I believe the whole valve cover needs to get replaced in order to fix that. But yeah, I'm really tired of this cheap smoke machine. It just doesn't work that well. I'm at the point where I'm ready to just dish out the money and buy a real smoke machine. But definitely have a leak right there. Now this thing right here, turn my light off. As you can see, our fuel trims are at positive 36%. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put my finger right here and block off this hose. You could even hear it whistle. And let's look at the fuel trims now. Look at that. I'm gonna take my finger off. So there goes our massive vacuum leak. Alright, so one thing that was throwing me off is I kept looking at boost pressure sensor. You can see it says 14.5 psi. It's what I kept looking at. But if you come look at the one that actually says boost pressure psi, you got 0. And the car is running right now, and I'm gonna step on the accelerator pedal. Absolutely nothing. So maybe it's time to take off that O2 sensor, and you could get a look with a camera. You could get a look at the turbine of the turbo. Alright, so I have my little camera, the one that connects to your cell phone here, and I got it feeding into this side of turbocharger. So I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna try to move the turbine from the other side. So I hope that's picking up well for you guys, so you guys can really see how much it's moving. So that's it for this one. This Chevy Cruze needs a purge valve, needs a valve cover, and needs a new turbo. So that's it for this one. As you can see, it's dark out here and I'm done. It's cold. Alright, so we got an 05 Durango. We're at my neighbor's house here. He brought the truck into his garage. Everything was driving fine. Comes to start the next day, would not start. Alright, so we start. First of all, he had a code for something with his key. We tried a different key in case it was a security issue, and it was not. Then we started checking basics. Check for spark. We had spark. Check fuel pressure, and absolutely no fuel pressure. Grab a rubber mallet, go bang on the fuel tank, and we hear the pump come alive. And here goes the waveform for that pump, and you can see all the dead spots on that fuel pump. So it's confirmed we have a bad fuel pump on this truck. We got the new fuel pump installed, and we're gonna go ahead and test it. Let's turn this on right here. There you go. That's a perfectly good working fuel pump, no dropouts. I'm underneath a Hyundai Sonata. It has a code for a heater circuit problem, and the heater circuit on the O2 is indeed open. I was ready to go ahead and cut the wire to make it easier to take off, but then I decided to check the plug on new part, and we have the wrong part. See, the plugs are different, so it's a good thing I didn't cut the wire. Just gonna go ahead, plug it back in, and it's gonna come back a different day when we get the right part. I was able to get a new sensor for it today. As you can see, it's already installed, connected, and ready to go. This thing was $180. That's crazy, but it is what it is. So let's go check the scan data. Should be okay. Tested the heater circuit on it. It has continuity, so that's a good sign. There we go. It's pretty much all set. I deleted the codes, and we're looking at bank 1 sensor 2, which would be the green line or the top number. And with the old sensor, it was stuck at 0.420. With the car running, it would not move at all. And you can already see we have activity on the new sensor. So it looks like everything here is good to go. And that'll be it for this one. It's dark out here. Got my neighbor's Oldsmobile Alero. For the past few days, he's been having issues with it overheating. Instead of calling me to figure out what's wrong with it, he just keeps on driving it. For like the past 2 days, I've been seeing him pulling up home. I mean, like smoke coming from underneath the hood like you wouldn't believe. And I thought, yeah, for sure he would call me, but no, just kept driving it. Last night he was on the expressway. He said to shut off on him, and they had the car pushed home. He told me to look at it now. So I put my jump starter on it because the battery is completely dead. But let's go ahead and crank it over and see what it sounds like. Yep. Sounds like no compression. I'm in the garage with this Impala, and it's the same Impala that I just did a blender actuator and a window switch. If you remember correctly, the owner actually bought the wrong blender actuator. So right there, he lost money, right? Because all this stuff's coming from online. He buys everything online. And then instead of a window switch, he bought a window regulator, which turned out it was just a switch. Again, more wasted money, right? So this time it's here for both front CV axles and stabilizer bar bushings and links. All right. Again, he bought his own parts online, which there's nothing wrong with that. You know, buy your own parts. The problem is this. Here goes both of the axles, and then my hand hit something. Boom. What is this? It's a complete front sway bar. I did not tell him to order that. I said stabilizer links and bushings. So again, just leads to more wasted money. I just texted the owner. I told him, hey, you bought a complete kit and all you needed was the links and the bushings. He's like, oh, I thought you said I also needed a bar. I'm like, no, I never said that. I don't think I've ever told anyone they have to buy a complete bar. It's just not that common of an issue for these bars to be broken. But, you know, it is what it is. I don't know, some people just want to save money because they think the guy ordering the parts is going to try to screw them over on pricing, you know, and they want to try to save money like that, but you're not really saving money if you're ordering the wrong parts. Here's the CV shaft on the left side of the car. See, we got that giant mess right there that I have to clean up. I got everything all cleaned up and a new CV axle is installed. That old one was a real pain in the butt to get out. That thing was like, fuck it, I'm not coming out. Oh, hello. I'm all done with this Impala. You can see everything's put back together. We have the new CV shaft on the right side here. And we ended up using the new bushings and the links out of the kit that he bought. Initially he was like, no, leave it, I'm gonna try to return it and get my money back. But he started looking for the bushing and the links and, you know, stores around here, and none of them had them in stock. So he was like, you know what, just go ahead and use those parts and whatever. So that's what I got done. Here we have a Altima with a V6, and a few days ago the owner came by to try to diagnose a misfire. She has a code for cylinder 3 misfire, which is this one back here. So as you can see, the intake manifold had to come off to get to it. She had it at a shop previously, which is a brake slash muffler shop, and they told her she needs 2 spark plugs back here, and they were going to charge her X amount of money to come in here and change 2 spark plugs. First of all, I put my scope on it, and we definitely have an ignition coil problem, okay? And second of all, if you're gonna go through all this trouble, why are you only changing 2 plugs? Change all of them. That's what I did. Told the customer, hey, if I'm coming in here to change what I believe is a bad coil, I'm not gonna change the coil. We're gonna change the spark plugs while we're in here. And the first thing I noticed is, look at that coil. That's why it's misfiring. So the proof is in the pudding. 100% confirmed we have a bad ignition coil, and I did see that on the scope, so that was really cool. Now let's go ahead and change the plugs and put this bad boy back together. I got the 3 spark plugs out, and you can see on the 2 cylinders that were firing, you can see it looks white right at the tip right there. And same thing with this one, and look at this one. This is the one that was misfiring. You can see how black it looks. It's full of fuel, and you could even see the tracking up here of where the spark wasn't making it to the spark plug. Just about done here. All the spark plugs are torqued down, everything's put back together. And initially I made a mistake. I put the bad coil, because I had it sitting here, I put the bad coil right here. So I was done, right? I'm ready to start up the car, and I'm like, hey, why do I have an extra coil? I completely forgot that I just changed the coil. And I look at the one that was sitting here, and I'm like, what? This one looks like it's good. So that means I must have put the bad one in, and I had it sitting right here. It's all taken care of, and now let's go for the first startup. Everything should be okay. Should is a key word. Oh yeah, sounds good. No misfires. And again, I got bit in the butt for not checking my parts. As you can see, I got the oil draining out, took the oil filter off, and the only thing the owner dropped off is oil. There's no new filter. So because I got other work lined up, so if she can't bring me a filter, this thing's gonna get the old filter put back on and new oil. What am I supposed to do? Who buys it? I don't know. I mean, if you went to an auto parts store and you go to buy oil, shouldn't the employees there tell you, hey, you need an oil filter? I don't know. Alright, after getting off the phone with the owner of the car, she told me that she forgot to pick up the oil filter. She said to just go ahead and put the old oil filter on the car, and add the new oil in, and that's it for that one. So it's what I did. There wasn't a lot of oil came out this car. It's very little oil, and it's all starting to make sense because she had a few other complaints. We had a check engine light for something like a camshaft position solenoid or something like that. She was complaining about low power and the car would not go over a certain speed. Well, if you got so little oil in the engine, the camshaft solenoid isn't getting the oil pressure that it needs, so it throws a code, and it would definitely give you lack of power and not wanting to go over a certain speed. But I can tell you right now, this thing has all its power back, and it goes with this V6. So adding oil into the engine took care of that. I've been messing with this one bolt for about 45 minutes, and I finally got it free. It was completely seized to the bushing, so a lot of torching going on here, and it's actually free now. It moves in and out, but I'm leaving it there because I still have that one to do and this one, and they're also seized, so this really sucks. Okay, great, making progress on this bolt right here. Finally got it free, and this one only took about 20 minutes, I want to say. You can see it's coming out. At this point, the control arm has to get changed because after heating it so much, the bushings are now like disintegrated. They don't even exist anymore. So gotta do that last one right there, and then I could get the whole control arm off. As you can see, lower control arm is off. Now that bolt back there wasn't too bad. It was mainly just hitting it a few times with the impact gun, and it came right off. And I don't know, I feel like I put so much stress on these bolts, especially the two front ones, that I'm just gonna go ahead and replace them. Here goes the control arm. You could see how, I mean, the bushings were bad to begin with, but you could see how I really had to torch it just to get those bolts out. But here's the replacement bolts I have, and they're actually from Dorman. But they actually work because I tried other bolts online, you know, doing all my measurements and buying the bolts based off of measurements, but they just don't fit perfectly. But this Dorman kit, if you put them in here, they fit the bore like perfectly. There's like zero play, so it's a real nice kit. And then the ends of it are tapered, so it makes it really easy for an install. It's about almost 2 a.m. It's like 50 degrees inside the garage here, and I got my Bud Pepsi. And the reason I'm in here is because I'm not too happy with the brakes on the CRX. It's like the car doesn't want to stop when you hit the brakes. It's more like it's just slowing down, if that makes any sense. Basically, if you got any amount of speed going and you have to stop behind someone, there isn't much confidence there. I checked the brakes all around, and technically everything should be okay. So what I'm going to do is take off the front pads and rotors, and basically clean off the rotors with some brake parts cleaner, and just kind of try to resurface the pads, you know, just like some little hacks or ghetto fixes, and just try to so that the pads bite a little bit better into the rotor, if that makes sense. I don't know, I'm just trying things. It's all gonna get replaced in the future, but for now I just want to try to make it better. So I got one rotor off, as you can see, and I already started cleaning half of it. Basically, I'm just using my rotor attachment to clean like between the studs, and some brake parts cleaner. As you can see, I've already done the left side of the rotor. So nothing fancy going on here. Pretty much all done with the rotor on the left side of the car. Next up is the brake pads. And this is really a little ghetto thing I got going on here. But basically, I just got the flattest board I have around here, and put a piece of 180 grit sandpaper down, and just giving the pads a few light passes over the sandpaper. You don't want to do it too much because this is aggressive. It takes a lot of material off. But here's what the pad looks like afterwards, and this is how they looked before I started. Alright, so again, messing with the CRX. The brakes still are not working too great, even after bleeding at both rear wheels. Still pretty much the same. The car doesn't want to stop. It's more like it wants to slow down. That's about it. One thing I did notice is the previous owner replaced a brake line. You can see it's right here. Comes up. I noticed it comes up pretty high right here. Look at this bend. So the height of this, if I'm not mistaken, looks to be slightly higher than the master cylinder. So is it possible that there's air trapped right here? And to me, this looks like one of those lines that you just go to your local auto parts store. It's already, you know, the flares are made, the fittings are on, and it's got a predetermined length. And it seems like he just bought one that seems like it would fit and just kind of make it work. You know, for people who don't have the tools to cut the lines and make your own flares, this explains why, you know, there's excess lines and bends really where there doesn't have to be a bend. But I really do think that this was sitting higher than the master cylinder and potentially let air get trapped right here. I'm pretty much all done with the line. I kept it very simple. I tried to make a direct shot straight to the master. Nothing fancy. Like I said, all this stuff needs to get done properly when this engine comes out. But it just comes right out of here. Runs right alongside this fuel line. So it's zip tied with 2 zip ties just so it doesn't rattle around. Go straight back. I know it's hard to see. Oh, there it goes. So you go straight back. It's not touching anything at all. You know, anything that's gonna rub or rattle on it comes right through here, bends around right into the master. And as you can see, I got my bleeder on here, and I've already bled at this line and the line back there as well that goes into the back of the master cylinder, and I bled right here. Alright, so I'm out taking it for a test drive, and the brake pedal is way better. It's amazing that it really was that one line. There had to be air trapped in it. You know, the way it was configured, it just would not let the air be bled out properly, and the pedal feels like a whole different car. The only thing going on now is the pedal feels good, but the car just isn't stopping like I think it should. Update on the CRX. I did get a decent set of brake pads. I put them on, and they did help. Okay, feels better. So we got the pedal feeling better, right? The brake pads made a difference, but it's not quite there yet. And you know how I know? Because last night when I went to put the front brake pads on, I go to compress a piston on the front right side, and what do I see? Brake fluid coming out from behind the boot. The pistons, I mean the calipers really look like they're new. They don't look old at all. I'm guessing the previous owner had just put them on and he got a defective caliper. And I think this is where he was chasing his tail with this, trying to fix this problem. And he figured, well, it can't be the calipers because they're brand new. I think this is a perfect case of brand new doesn't mean it works. So I did order a new caliper for that side, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be the last thing with this brakes. One more thing I want to take care of on the CRX today is basically the ground straps. Pretty sure this is the original one. You can see all the corrosion right here. I mean, they still work more or less, you know, but I think it's time to just change them. This one I made not too long ago, but it's not a thick enough gauge of wire, so I'm gonna make another one with a bit more thicker gauge wire, and it should be all set. So let's take care of that. I'm just about done here. You can see came out pretty neat. Now this connection was on both sides, but the cable was way too long, so I had to cut it, and actually got a new tool in, so I made my own crimps right there. And it's also bolted up right there, and of course everything is crimped and heat shrinked, so it looks real clean, real nice. I'm happy with it. On the battery side, I'm not too happy with this. Number one, because when I went to the store, the only length they had available was like 15 inches or something like that, and as you can see, it just barely reaches from the battery to the engine down there. The only downside is if you look at the original one, where it bolts up to the body right here in the center, that's actually a grounding point for the body. You see that? So we kind of lose that by going over to this. So it looks like I'm going to have to run another cable from the body and probably just tap into it right here. You know, just I'm not really excited or happy about that. I may go online and try to see if I can find a OEM type that has the same body location right in the center. If I can't, then I'm just gonna have to run one off of here directly to the body. I may have found a solution that I can live with. This is the other end of the cable, which is this one right here. Remember how I said it was way too long, so I cut it? So here goes the other end that came on it originally. And that's just gonna bolt right up to the battery terminal right there. And the other end is gonna go right there. Now this end is already crimped on and it is 100% solid. It's not going anywhere. As far as this, I'm gonna run a tap through it to make sure we have good contact. And the heat shrink, it's all I got. I don't have a black heat shrink that's gonna fit this. So red will be fine. But I'm much happier with this. That way we're gonna have a connection coming directly off the battery post to the chassis instead of just from the battery to the engine. Alright, I'm all done here. Here goes the first one I made. Showed you guys that already. And here goes the other one. It's a nice simple connection right from the battery right to chassis. Looks good, fits well. And now we have our two connections from battery to engine and from battery to chassis. And I think it's more than good enough, because in the future the battery is going to end up getting relocated anyway. So this is overkill, you know, for right now, for like a temporary fix. But I'm really happy with the way they turned out. 2013 Chrysler 200. The complaint on this one is the heat is not working, and they could hear like coolant sloshing around and inside of the dash, you know, whenever they first turn the car on and whatnot. Owner changed the thermostat himself. No, he said he had someone else do it, and the guy who did it told him that there's too much air in the system. I don't know the story. I don't know if the heat never worked before the thermostat, or worked before that but didn't work after the guy replaced the thermostat. So I don't know the full story. But I think what I'm going to do is pressure test the system first. So I just got it pressurized, and it took like all of 10 seconds to notice that the needle is moving. Very slowly, but it is moving. And I actually heard like a drip underneath the car. I heard something drip. Well, that did not take long. See it right there? There you go. Either the clamp isn't working right, or the hose is worn out. I found out that the thermostat is sold as a complete housing like this, so that's a completely new piece. And you know, checking the OD of this part, looks perfectly fine. Doesn't look like it's marred up or anything that would cause it to leak. The inside of the hose looks fine. I don't see any damage. So I'm gonna have to assume it's this piece of crap clamp that's causing it to leak. I don't understand why people remove the OEM clamps like this, you know, this style, to replace them with this. I think it's a matter of that they're a pain in the butt to deal with, and once people finally get them off, they're like, screw that, I'm not putting it back on, it's too hard to work with. So they put this junk on, and it just doesn't seal right. Honestly, I know these are a pain in the butt to work with, but to me I feel like they seal so much better. So I found this one laying around my garage. It's the last one I have here, and I think it might work, so I'm gonna try to fit it on there. The clamp I tried using is not gonna work. It just doesn't fit. It's too small. So I had no choice but to replace this style clamp with another one. So I made sure I put it in the spot that I wanted to. It's nice and tight. We have the system pressurized and it's holding steady. No drips. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I do not like these style clamps, but I don't have any more of these. And from what I understand, you cannot just go to AutoZone and buy these. I tried before and they just don't sell them. So we're all out of options. Do what you gotta do, right? So it seems to be holding. I'm gonna let this sit here for another 10 minutes or so, but it already seems like it's better than before. Everything in the engine is put back together. I've already bled the system, but we have pretty much somewhat heat on this side and nothing on this side of the car. want to get to the heater cord, but I noticed these look like drywall screws, right? Am I wrong? Definitely look like drywall screws. Air filter needs to get replaced, and the clamps for the entire air box, everything was loose, so someone's been in here meddling around. So these are the two hoses going to the heater cord. This one and that one are very disconnected, as you can see, and honestly, system's filled and barely anything trickled out of here. Alright, so here's where I'm at. The two hoses that I had coming out the heater core, I put some water through them, just using like a garden hose, and the heater core actually flowed pretty good. There wasn't any issues. But one thing I did notice is the reservoir over there was completely filled with antifreeze, right? And as soon as you disconnect this hose and this hose, you basically have two open ports right here. All that antifreeze should have been just draining out of here like crazy because you got an open port, right? But it wasn't. Completely blocked up on both sides. Nothing was coming out. So at that point, I grabbed the compressed air. Now you don't want to go crazy with this. Just, I gave it like 2 or 3 light sprays inside of here. And after like the third hit, all of a sudden all the antifreeze just comes rushing out of both tubes here, and that started to drain. So we had a blockage somewhere within this piping, and it seems to be cleared now. I bet you we're gonna have our heat working now. I'm here with a Mercedes ML350, and the complaint in this one is intermittently it won't start. And it's not like it's not a crank. She said she puts the key in, like she'll just drive it, it drove fine. She'll put the key in, turns it, and absolutely no power at the dash. She's just wait like 30 minutes, put the key in, all of a sudden power's back, car turns on just fine. So the fact that we have no power is steering me away from, it's not an actual starting issue. You're gonna come straight to the battery because we're not getting power when you put the key in. So you can see the kind of mess that's going on here, but the terminal is tight, doesn't move, and on the ground side, you see that's completely clamped down. It's not gonna go any further, but the terminal came right off. Look at that. So completely loose. Okay, so it was a pretty simple fix. Just stopped at AutoZone and found a ground cable. It was pretty much the perfect length, and it just bolts up to the body right here, and this end is already tightened down and there's no play at all. It doesn't move, it's nice and solid. So yeah, pretty simple fix. All I'm gonna do is keep checking the car and make sure this does not happen again. It should not happen again because I'm pretty confident that that was the problem.